What up, everybody, and welcome to the Super Wild Card Weekend Fantasy Flex Props podcast presented by PrizePicks. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on?
So that's what we're calling it now, the Super Wild Card Weekend?
I mean, we got a Monday game, so I think it's only
I
right.
love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So, 3 days of playoff football. Can't beat it. Coming off a hot week 18 for both of us. So let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we get to watch some games together this weekend.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with we'll do our top 10 props as always. Obviously, only 6 games, a little less of a selection, but we'll still try to find our top 10 within that. But we'll start with the Monday night showdown slate. If you want a breakdown of the Saturday and Sunday slates, be sure to listen to our main slate podcast, which already dropped, where we cover that in depth. Here, we're just going to focus on the Monday slate and then go into the props. So, Sean, we got the Cardinals, we got the Rams. It's in LA. These teams split in the regular season. The Rams look like they're 4-point favorites at most sports books, total around 49 and a half, depending on the book. What are your thoughts for the captain spot here?
I mean, obviously, Cooper Kupp should be the chalky captain. Of course, when he needed 136 yards to break the record last week, he ended with 118. So I'm assuming this week he'll go over 136 just to spite us. So I think he's a no-brainer, but I like going with Kyler Murray here. I just think especially in the playoffs, he's going to lean on his legs even more. So I think he has the highest ceiling, and, he might not be too highly rostered in the captain slot. So I think I'm going to go with Kyler. Another sneaky captain play would be, to sort of fade Kyler and go James Conner. This could be a game where Conner gets, 2 or 3 rushing touchdown and just screws over, Kyler in the passing game. So I think Conner is probably the sneaky captain play, but I think Kyler will be my most popular one.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because on one hand you have Kyler, and first time quarterbacks in the playoffs tend to do really poorly. But on the other side, you have Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford tends to do really poorly against winning teams. So it's like, what's going to happen? Something's got to give here. But I think Kyler, just because of his rushing upside, kind of changes it, because I think both of these quarterbacks are a threat to throw for 300 yards, potentially, 3 touchdowns in this game. But Kyler's legs really separate him from Stafford. And I think, Cooper Kupp, obviously, on the Rams side. And I like that Conner call. I'll talk about him in a second when we get to the DFS cheat codes. Actually, let's get into that right now. Who do you like, a little further down to fill out your lineups?
I mean, there's not too many low key options on this slate. There's just a ton of good players, but I think Antoine Wesley obviously sticks out. His rostership will probably be pretty high at this point. Everybody knows who he is. He has, 3 touchdowns in the past 4 games, but I do like, pairing him with Kyler. Have Christian Kirk or Zach Ertz and fade one of them for Antoine Wesley. Like, that's kind of how I'm approaching this. So, Wesley for the Cardinals side, and then Tyler Higbee on the Rams side. I've been waiting for Tyler Higbee to break out for like 10 weeks now, and he finally did last week. It looked like he had suffered like a season-ending knee injury, and then he came in and caught a touchdown. He looked really good after that. So he had 6 catches for 55 yards. 2 touchdowns. That's 3 straight games now with 5 or more catches. So I think Tyler Higbee on the Rams side is probably my cheat code.
Yeah, and I think AJ Green is another guy. You mentioned Wesley. AJ Green's been really good against zone coverage. The Rams play zone at the 3rd highest rate, and they don't really have a choice at this point. I mean, their secondary is banged up. Yes, they have Ramsey, but they just signed Eric Weddle to play safety. He hasn't played since before COVID. So, it's like this. I don't think they have a choice but to play zone coverage. The Cardinals are about 2.2 yards better per attempt against zone than man. And AJ Green has been their best receiver against zone coverage this year. He's been even better than DeAndre Hopkins in his 2 games against the Rams this year, 567-1 and then 7 for 102. So I think AJ Green is a guy who I'm going to have a lot of in there. And then I like that Conner call. I like stacking them actually with the Cardinals defense because I think, Conner, he's really going to shine in the red zone. I think, you'll see kind of a mix of the two backs, otherwise, but in the red zone, it's going to be the Connor show. And I think pairing them with a correlated play like the defense, Matthew Stafford just hasn't been as good over these last 9 weeks. His yards per attempt dropped from 9.1 to 7.3. Touchdown interception ratio over the first 8 weeks was 22-4. The last 9 weeks, it was just 19-13. So his interceptions have tripled. He's holding on to the ball for 0.24 more seconds per drop back. So I think the Cardinals defense, they're top 6 in DVOA, 5th against the pass. So this is a really good Cardinal defense. And I think they could, cause some problems for Matthew Stafford in this spot, who just hasn't been as good. So really like them. And then I think a guy like Cam Akers, we don't really know what his workload is going to be like, but that's the point, right? It's like the uncertainty of, Sony Michel could still get, his 70%, 80% snap share, but Cam Akers could also get the 70 to 80%. Like, we just don't know here because they kind of eased him in that first game back, but he was kind of their offensive centerpiece, or at least intended to be, heading into the season. So I think he's pretty intriguing as well.
Yeah, I love the Akers call. How many carries are you projecting for him right now?
Right now, I still think I have him getting about 35%, 40%, but like that could double. Like, you know what I mean? There's like,
he has his range of outcomes is a lot wider than most guys. Yeah. So is that 7 to 8 carries you said?
Yeah, I think around 7 carries.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in line with that. But exactly like you said, it could flip this week. He could see 15 plus carries and Sony Michel's the backup. You don't know. So I do like that call going into a 1-game slate. Just getting a player with that wide range of outcomes is usually the smart play.
Yeah. And I should note, like, in the 2 games that these teams faced off, Cardinals should have really won both of them. Cardinals outgained the Rams in both games. And in total, Cardinals 912 total yards to the Rams 777. So it just makes sense to kind of load up on Cardinals here. Maybe the rostership is skewed a little more toward the Rams. So, any of those Cardinals guys, I think it's just worth noting. All right, let's get into our top 10 props of the week. We're using the lines at PrizePicks. Sean, start us off with your quarterback prop for Wild Card Weekend.
So I'm going with Derek Carr over 240.5 passing yards against the Bengals. The Raiders have the second highest passing rate when trailing. So considering the Raiders are 5-point underdogs, I think this could be a pass heavy game script. The increase in pass attempts will translate to yards for Derek Carr. So love the over here. And, he has Darren Waller back. They were kind of off last week. I think that was due to a bit of rust. They should be a little bit more in sync here. So I love the over 240.5 passing yards for Carr. I have it projected closer to 260. So I think this line's a bit off.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just like to do with the weather concerns. That's got to be it, because this number, I think it was a little higher earlier in the week too. 240 is extremely low, but yeah, one way or another, it's the playoffs. You're not leaving anything out there. You're not going to just like go super run heavy and conservative now, especially if you're trailing. All right, for me, I'm going Matthew Stafford over 270.5 passing yards. And this kind of fits the narrative I'm talking about, where the Cardinals actually have outplayed the Rams in both of these games. For much of the games, they just made some mistakes. But I don't know if we're going to necessarily see a positive game script for Stafford just because the Rams are favored at home. This is also one of the 2 indoor games this weekend, and it should be played at a fast pace, which always is going to help passing yards. You got the Rams 4th in situation neutral pace, according to Football Outsiders, and the Cardinals are 7th. And we know that they always want to go fast. So you have 2 teams in the top 7 in pace. Stafford's been over 278 in 12 of 17 games. And the Cardinals tend to not give up a ton of passing yardage. I mentioned they're a pretty good defense, but Stafford 287 and 280 in 2 games versus the Cardinals. So he's been over this number in both. I have it in the high 270s. I bet it's about 277.5 here, because I just think that this is gonna, it's the playoffs. It's gonna have to be a pass heavy game, and he might turn it over a couple of times with what he's been doing, which just increases the need for more passing yards. So Stafford over 270.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have low 280s, and he has 2 or more interceptions in 3 straight now. And like when it comes to pick sixes, those are actually great for overs when it comes to passing yards, because they get the ball right back and it's even more of a trailing game script. So I don't think the turnovers hurt him here. If anything, they help. So yeah, I love the over as well.
Yeah, I would love a pick six for my Cardinals plus 4.5.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would love that. All right, where are you going at running back?
I'm going with Elijah Mitchell over 71.5 rushing yards against the Cowboys. The 49ers lead the league in early down rush rate in neutral situations, and that's essentially what this game's going to be. I think it's going to be a close game throughout. And, what better way to keep the Cowboys offense on the sideline than just, pounding the rock, sustaining these long drives that the 49ers have been doing for over a month now. So I think they're going to lean on Elijah Mitchell. He's played through injuries all season, so I'm not too concerned about his knee injury. They like to just ride him hard and then give Deebo Samuel the extra work. So, I'm projecting this in the low 80s. So I think this is about 10 yards off. But again, he's one of those players that has a really high floor. He's gone over this in 6 of the past 8 games. Again, dealing with injuries through all of those games anyway. So I think this is a spot where the Cowboys defense is sort of a run funnel one anyway. They rank second in DVOA against the pass, 16th versus the run. So there's just too many factors to like Mitchell to avoid this. So I love over 71.5 rushing yards.
It feels like an under game the more I look at it, where it's just like the Niners are just going to try to bleed the clock and hand it to Mitchell and Samuel. And that's I still don't think they match up well in the pass game. So this is it's going to be crucial that they are able to run the ball. So I think that'll be the plan.
Although handing it off to Samuel doesn't do a good job bleeding the clock because he usually takes it to the house.
Right. Yeah. It's like
it's all good. But yeah, they're going to be just running it, I think, a ton just to keep the Dallas offense on the sideline.
For my first running back prop, I'm going Joe Mixon over 0.5 rushing touchdown. So essentially Joe Mixon to score at least one rushing touchdown. He's done so in 10 of 17 games overall, but 7 of the 9 home games that the Bengals have played. We know running backs tend to do best as home favorites, and that's what the Bengals are here. So like Mixon in the spot to score. And look at the Vegas defense. Yes, they've been better against the run as of late, but on the season, they've still allowed 16 rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs. That's the 5th most in the NFL. So like Mixon to find the end zone at least once. And remember, this is Joe Burrow going against the zone heaviest team in the NFL. The Bengals shred man coverage. They're still great against zone, but they're a little more, they're good instead of like all world ridiculous, Jamar Chase going for 200-yard type against zone. Against man, that's when they really go off. So expecting Mixon to find the end zone here at least once.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're offering a prop for this. Usually they're pretty good with these rushing props, half a rushing touchdown. Usually I'm in line with them, but right now I have Mixon close to a 0.8 rushing touchdown. So this should be like, minus 140, minus 150 type prop. And they're offering it, at a coin flip. So love the over here as well. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you're always entering it at PrizePicks with a second prop. You have to at least parlay it. So that's why I think it's a little more, but yeah, I have him at 0.79. So I'm right in line with you. That definitely equates to over a 50% chance of at least one. Where are you going with your second running back prop?
I'm sticking with these touchdown props. I'm going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire under 0.5 touchdowns. So that's rushing and receiving combined. I'm only projecting him for 0.4 touchdowns total, which is about a 60% chance of going under this. This is a game where he could be limited due to this shoulder injury. They love Darrell Williams. You talked about that on Tuesday's podcast, and they also have Derek Gore, who's been playing well of late. So, this is a game where they could limit him. So this, he has 3 carries inside the 5-yard line all season, and all 3 he converted to a touchdown. So he is due for some, regression when it comes to that stat to begin with, but especially since he's dealing with the shoulder injury, I don't think they give him goal line work here. I think they just stick with a Darrell Williams if they get in that situation. But even then, the Chiefs love playing, coming up with gimmicky plays around the goal line anyway. So I just don't see where Edwards-Helaire is going to get his touchdown, maybe in the passing game, but he could be limited here. So I'm projecting this about a 60% chance that he doesn't score a touchdown here.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainties to his workload, but in the past we have seen Williams kind of step up and yeah, I think Edwards-Helaire, he's just not going to get many opportunities, at least in a run game. Like the most dangerous is probably if he gets a catch at this point, but he's been stuffed so many times. I know he's 3 for 3 this year, but we've seen him stuffed so many times down and close. So All right, for my second running back prop, I'm going with Leonard Fournette over 60.5 rushing yards. Taking advantage of this number because I think, people are a little worried because he hasn't been out there in a while, but they fully kind of, expected to activate him for the playoffs. And now you have Ronald Jones doubtful and Bernard activated. So in the past, if Fournette was going to come out of the game, a lot of times it would be, as a rusher, and Ronald Jones would go in, for him, and Fournette would get all the receiving work. But now, given the guys that are healthy, it seems like Fournette would get all the rushing work. And if you did give him a breather, it would be in the pass game because you'd have Bernard. So I think this is going to be a pretty, big volume game for Fournette in the run game. He's gone over this 67, actually. He's gone 67 or more in 6 of his last 11 games. He also had 63 or more in 3 or 4 postseason games last year. And 20-mile-per-hour winds expected in Tampa, maybe even 30. So this could be a run-heavy game script. Tampa Bay's favored by more than a touchdown. And in the first matchup, they played in week 6, Fournette 22 carries, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. So they leaned on him in that first matchup. I think they plan to do so again, especially with Jones doubtful. Like, you're just not handing the ball to, Keyshawn Vaughn, Kenyon Barner, Le'Veon Bell, whoever else is on that roster in a postseason game.
Yeah, I love this, Colin. Would you double down and maybe attack the under on his receiving yards, or just given the weather, maybe they just dump it up to the running backs time?
I don't think I want any Lenny unders. This is playoff Lenny time, man. Like this, he's fresh. He got fresh legs. Like, now I don't want any. And you're getting anything to do with the under.
You're getting him cheap because this is assuming he's somewhat limited. So yeah, I agree. Just anytime you get playoff Lenny at a discount, you do it. So I'm with you on the over here as well.
All right, let's go to receiver. Who you got as your first one?
Well, I'm sticking with Zay Jones over 38.5 receiving yards. And I think this correlates perfectly with my Derek Carr over. Darren Waller coming back does impact Zay Jones' target share, but I think he really impacts Hunter Renfrow's the most. And we already saw that happen last week. But Zay Jones, he's been really consistent, 5 or more catches and 5 straight. So I think in a potentially trailing game script where I already mentioned the Raiders throw at the second highest rate when trailing, this is another perfect spot for Zay Jones, who I think has established himself as a high floor player, which is really weird to say. But I'm projecting this closer to 45.5. So I love the over 38.5 receiving yards.
I'm around 41.5. So I'm a little lower, but still over as well. I think Waller is going to rebound. I think Renfro still get his 5 catches, but Jones has also been getting 4 or 5 catches every week now too.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of hoping at least one of them is a first down type of catch, so you can get that chunk there on that one, and then you're good. For my first receiver prop, I'm going with, they call him a receiver. He really does everything, but Deebo Samuel over 26.5 rushing yards against the Cowboys. He's had 29 or more in 7 of the past 8 games. He's averaging 6.6 carries over that span. And I think his carries might actually go up, because the only time Samuel was in the postseason was 2019 as a rookie. He averaged 0.9 carries per game during the regular season, and that more than doubled to 2 carries per game in the playoffs. So here, I think he might get an extra carry or 2. I don't think it'll double, but I think he'll get an extra carry or 2, even compared to what he was doing down the stretch here. And in that last postseason, even on those 2 carries per game, he still cleared 43 yards in 2 of the 3 playoff games. So, he, like you said, he might not need more than a couple here to get that big game, because they saved their best schemed runs for him for this time of year. So love Deebo over 26.5 rushing yards. I take this at anything under 30.
Yeah, like I said, giving the ball to Deebo in a direct handoff isn't a good way to run up the clock, because sometimes he takes him to the house. But this prop just feels too easy. It seems like those Taco Tuesday props on PrizePicks, where they offer LeBron James, his points prop 10 points lower than the market. It kind of feels like this. It almost feels like cheating. So love the over here. You have to assume first round of the playoffs, they're just going to give Deebo even more carries. So yeah, I love this over as well.
All right, where are you going with your second receiver prop?
So I'm going with Jakobi Meyers over 40.5 receiving yards. This is a spot where Mac Jones might be forced to throw a little bit more than he'd like. So this could be a pass-heavy game script against the Bills. I understand it's going to be freezing there, But Jakobi Meyers is his top target. His ADOT has gone up the past several games, but if needed, they can target him underneath. So I think this is a perfect spot for him. And he's gone over in 5 of the past 7 games. Granted, one of those was the fluky game where Mac Jones only attempted 3 passes. So I'm throwing that one out and saying he's gone over in 5 of 6 games. But just he's a high floor player where, anytime I see his prop a little bit too like this, 40.5, I love going over. I'm projecting him closer to 48.5. But I think the chances of going over this are closer to like 58, 60%. So give me the over 40.5 receiving yards for Jakobi Meyers.
Yeah, I have him about 42.5. So yeah, I'm still over this. Not as much as you, but I am over it. I think that, he's still their number 1 receiver. I know that one game where they didn't throw did come against the Bills, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to be able to do that again. It's because the thing is, it's going to be cold, but it's not as windy. It's not, it's not like the same type of game. So
like, that's all it is right? Just 5 degrees.
Yeah, that's
no
tough,
big deal.
Yeah.
Right? What is it here in California? 72. Give me a break.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
How many passing yards do you have Mac Jones for? Just curious. Because that's kind of leading into this. Is I'm at like 200.
200 mean or 200 median?
It's for passing yards is the same thing, really.
I have him at 195.
Okay, 195. Yeah, PrizePicks is at like 190 now, so they are lowering like all the passing projections for this game, which does make sense. But I just think Meyers, they probably just went a little bit too far.
Yeah, I mean, for my median for Jones, I'd have him at about 191.5. So yeah, I mean, it's right in line with what PrizePicks is throwing out there. So yeah, it's really going to come down to the game script. I think Belichick would probably like it if Jones was under this, because that probably means they're winning, So
yeah, no, Belichick would want under 100 for sure.
Right. All right. For my second one, this is one I also talked about on the Action Network NFL podcast with Stuckey, which is out now. CJ Uzomah under 23.5 receiving yards. He's had 20 or less in 4 of the last 7. But the real key here, 2 things. One, Vegas is the most zone heavy defense in the NFL. Uzomah averages 0.97 yards per route against zone coverage compared to 1.67 against man. So he drops about 0.7 of a yard per route, which is massive. He averages 19 yards per catch against man, but only 7.5 against zone. His ADOT, his average depth of target against man coverage, is 8.8, but against zone, it's only 3.6. So he could catch 3-4 balls and still go under this number with a 3.6 ADOT. And then the second thing is that there's no Riley Reef for the Bengals. Max Crosby is just an insane man, pass rushing. He has like no quit in him. He's going to be out there every snap. So what's Uzomah going to have to do? Chip, because you can't take Higgins off the field. You can't take Chase off the field. You can't take Boyd off the field. You can't take Mixon off the field. And you don't want to really take those guys out of the route either. So by default, Uzomah is kind of the expendable guy in this passing game that's probably going to have to help on Max Crosby and that Raider pass rush on the edge. So I don't think he's going to be able to do much in the pass game. In the first meeting, he had 3 targets, 2 catches, 9 yards against the Raiders. So like Uzomah under 23.5, I'd take this anything above 20.
Yeah, you're braver than me. I've avoided Uzomah props for a while now. He's such a wide range of outcomes guy. I'm projecting him slightly over, but I do like your point about, needing him to stay in and block a bit more. Do you think that also means that maybe Drew Sample gets more playing time as well? Because he's a better blocking tight end, right?
I don't think so. Because I think they still want Uzomah out there for at least the threat. And like I said, I think the Bengals, it's kind of like the Rams, where it's pretty straightforward. It's like you got your 3 receivers, you got your tight end, and then whoever's in there in the backfield. But like, it's really like you don't really want to take any of those guys off the field. So I think he'll be in there. I just don't think he'll be a part of the game plan in the passing game, unless you're talking about maybe he could get like a red zone catch. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like a 2-yard touchdown catch or something like that. But I just don't think he's going to be like a guy going down the field up the seam often, because I think you're going to want to use him to open things up, for the other guys via his, blocking. So
yeah, it makes sense. And if you take the point spread at its word, the Bengals are favored by 5 or 6 points. If it's a positive game script, I don't expect them to be targeting Uzomah too much. You just gotta love that they wasted a 2nd round pick on a guy like Drew Sample a couple years ago. for a blocking tight end that they probably won't even use in this spot.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he plays like special teams, so he's probably valuable to them still.
Yeah,
you know how that
second
goes.
round pick on a special team blocking tight end, same thing.
Hey man, he plays. He's played a bunch of. He plays on all their special teams units. So like kick return, punt coverage. Not much punt return, but 3 out of the 4 teams. I mean,
good for him.
Bill Belichick, he would stress, the importance of good special. Look at guys like Jakob Johnson. Like one day, Drew Samples is going to be like a household name, just like probably convert him to fullback or something.
Is Jakob Johnson a household name? Did I miss that?
Oh yeah, you don't know Jakob Johnson? I mean, come on.
No, I do. I'm saying, is he a household name?
No, he's obviously not. In Bill Belichick's household.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. To recap, Sean is going with Derek Carr over 240.5 passing yards against the Bengals. Elijah Mitchell over 71.5 rushing yards against the Cowboys. Clyde Edwards-Helaire under 0.5 touchdowns against the Steelers. Zay Jones over 38.5 receiving yards against the Bengals. And Jakobi Meyers over 40.5 receiving yards against the Bills. I'm going Matthew Stafford over 270.5 passing yards against the Cardinals. Joe Mixon over 0.5 rushing touchdowns against the Raiders. Leonard Fournette over 60.5 rushing yards against the Eagles. Deebo Samuel over 26.5 rushing yards against the Cowboys. And CJ Uzomah under 23.5 receiving yards against the Raiders. That's going to do it for this show. Again, if you want to breakdown of the Saturday and Sunday slates, check out the main slate pod on this channel, which has already released. We'll be back next week to break down the slates for the divisional rounds. You can find Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker. You can find me at Chris Raybon, and you can find us at those same handles in the free award-winning Action Network app. Be sure to check actionnetwork.com for our fantasy and betting content, and Fantasy Labs for our DFS content tools and models. Until next time, let's get this money.